Hello and happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this week's new episode of Breakfast with Boom. I am one of your hosts, Mr. BoomStick XL. Folks, we have a smaller panel here today because Korkenstein needed to get some rest. Obviously, in the West Coast, it is only 7 a.m. So we're going to get him back here next week along with Silent Cypher. So for today, it's going to be just me and Fuzzy Belvedere as it is normally on Mondays, which just want to give you guys and gals the heads up. There will not be a new show of the Xbox lunch break special for only this Monday. Mrs. Boom and I have two appointments. One is super early and one is right smack in the middle of the day that we have to go to. So we're not going I was going to try and squeeze a earlier show in there, but it would be too much pressure. So there's not going to be a new episode for this Monday only of the Xbox lunch break special. Just kind of want to put that out there, and I will reiterate that on the back end of the show. We don't like missing shows, folks, but this is two very important appointments that we cannot miss. But listen, we are going to be here for 70 minutes plus. We have two monster-sized topics to get into, one of which, as you can see, I did change some things. Now, there was an announcement that we will open up the show with momentarily that got me very excited because, of course, I am a gray beard. And I did shave, so I don't have a gray beard today, but I am a gray beard in stature and in age. And, of course, I'm talking about Marvel's Cosmic Invasion. And it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up, folks. We're going to play the trailer. Hopefully, I don't get flagged by Marvel for playing the trailer, but I got to show you guys. But, hey, Fuzzy Belvedere, good morning, kind sir. How are you feeling?
Good morning. Good morning. Feeling great. Glad to be here. Man, some good news has been happening for Xbox aside for pretty much most of this year. And we got some more games coming up right around the corner. It's like we're getting flooded with games right now. But man, it's exciting. It's so much fun. And yeah, I can't wait to get into these topics. So let's do this.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun conversation. Now, again, of course, I do want to open up with a screen share, folks. Now, what you see in front of you is obviously some gameplay from the Microsoft experience event that I went to. There are no spoilers here. This is hold on a sec. I think that might be you don't hear that, but I hear it. Okay, so let me just pause that. But so there's no spoilers here, folks. We're going to get into a big conversation regarding why you should be excited for South of Midnight. But we will get to that momentarily. I just want to do a quick screen share because I'm a big nerd, folks. You guys know that. I'm a Marvel stan. I'm a big fan of the MCU. And of course, phases 4 and 5, not the greatest, to be quite honest with you. There was a lot of bad decisions made by Kevin Feige and the team that is no longer there because he basically fired everyone. I'm watching, and as you should be, Daredevil Born Again, which is really good. But you can tell that there was a lot of stuff that was left in there from the show that they revised. And there's a lot of really good stuff. The next 3 episodes should be absolutely incredible. But I got to show you this trailer. Now, look, Fuzzy, I don't know how excited you are for games of this stature. Again, this is very classic. Was that?
Oh, for beat 'em ups? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, excellent. So there you go, folks. He's excited for beat 'em ups, as am I. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to show you the trailer for Marvel's Cosmic Invasion. This looks to be absolutely incredible. Let's see. I got to remove the others. Let me just remove that. Now, just give me a second, and we will blow this up for you folks. I'm going to hide us for a second. And I do want to show you this trailer. I'm not going to mute it. I'm gonna throw it to the wind. Hopefully Marvel doesn't, tag us for this. But check it out. I'm going to restart the trailer, folks, because it was playing. I didn't realize it was playing. So check it out, folks. This is the trailer for Marvel's new side-scrolling beat-em-up. Now, I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that that is exactly what I need in my life. Now, look, I've been saying this for quite a long time that we don't have enough side-scrolling beat 'em ups. Well, that kind of changed this year, Fuzzy. And again, this is a bit of a mini topic to open up the show before we get into two of the big ones. But this year, we have seen quite a few of them. The Power Rangers one came out. I bought it. It's incredible. You also had G.I. Joe Wrath of Cobra, which was another one that is, if you are an 80s G.I. Joe fan, you must get this in your life. Um, um, Mayhem Brawler 1 is something that's been out for a couple of years. Mayhem Brawler 2 is releasing this year. If you did not play the original and you were a fan of Final Fight, you should definitely give it a shot because it is really fantastic. As a matter of fact, it's so good because it's told in a comic book-esque form and factor that you pick your path. So you're presented with two covers for two different comic books, and depending on the path you choose is depending on the way the story goes. And I think you do that 6 or 7 times, which means that that game has a significant amount of replayable value to it. Because again, if you pick the book on the left, you're not going to get the story that's on the right. You should definitely check out Mayhem Brawler 1, Mayhem Brawler 2 coming out this year. You also have Towerborn on the 29th of April. That is a side-scrolling beat-em-up RPG. That looks to be something I've been waiting for a very long time. But listen, if you are a graybeard like me, you remember going to the arcades. Now, for me, it was Nathan's Arcade on Central Avenue in Yonkers, New York. And I told you, you heard me talk about this before. They had about 200 cabinets. It was a massive arcade. And they used to section it off really nice. They had fighters, they had shooters, they had racers, but they also had a section for side-scrolling beat-em-ups where you saw TMNT, both the original and Turtles in Time. Again, classic. Of course, if you remember the 4-player arcade of the Avengers, which was freaking amazing, but most people remember the 4-player, and it might have even been 5-player X-Men arcade game, which we've all been asking for in our lives, and we still haven't gotten. Well, I'm here to tell you, folks, that if you are a fan of the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles side-scrolling beat-em-up, this is the same developer, and now they have a Marvel project. Marvel Games has exploded on the scene. This is very old school. You can tell by just the way the graphics are. It looks phenomenal. And what's interesting, and I think that when you consider how many characters are available for Marvel as a whole, right? They only showed 7 characters. Folks, I'm here to tell you that if you look and you do some research, you're going to see that there are 15 slots for characters, which means that there are 8 unrevealed characters. And I would imagine you could see the likes of a Miles Morales. You can see Iron Man joining the fray. You can see Thor, Hulk for sure. Me personally, because I'm watching Daredevil, I'd like to see the Double D's. Pause for Daredevil. I'd like to see the Punisher be there as well. Fuzzy, let's get your thoughts and your theories on this, because again, this was revealed yesterday at the Nintendo show, which was okay. It is what it is. The Switch is on the end of its lifespan. They needed to show this, and a lot of it was indies. This was the big surprise, at least for me. Are you excited for Cosmic Invasion?
Oh yeah, like these side scroll beat 'em ups have been pretty much a staple early in my video gaming history, I guess you could say. And ever since the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and even the what was that? Not Street Fighter. Final Fight, or no,
Final
not Final
Fight,
Fight.
yeah. Streets of Rage is another one. But
Yeah,
that was
Streets of Rage 4. That, like, once that hit, like, ever since then, it sparked that interest in those
yes.
style games all over again. And I'm glad that someone's bringing them back. Like, that's the stuff that it's like, and especially the fact that it's co-op, so you and your buddies could just go in and just like rip through these and as fast as you can. You can either do like the time runs, or you could just go through, unlocking other characters by completing some of the levels and things along those lines. So I love these type of games. They're like I wouldn't say the mindless, type of games, but they are a bunch of fun where you don't have to put as much effort into like your build or what gear you need for, completing this particular, event type of thing. Like I'm big into looter shooters, but this is like the I guess the break from that, where you don't have to have the spreadsheet out to make sure that you're going as great, or your build is as great as it can be type of thing. You're just going through, punching a bunch of bad guys, getting to the end, saving either the girl or the kidnapped people, or you're rescuing friends and stuff like that. So it's awesome that these games are coming back. Like, I seen somebody say, like, The Simpsons would be another nice one if they
Oh
could
my
bring
God,
that back.
yes.
But
Holy cow.
but yeah, considering with Marvel, if they continue this path, I think this would be one that we all need to support, so we can see like an X-Men one come back type of deal. But yeah, I'm definitely picking this one up. There's some other ones, like there's a Toxic Avenger one that should
Yes.
be coming out soon.
Yes.
And there's a Jay and Silent Bob one that's also in development right now that I'm kind of waiting for as well. So yeah, there's a ton of them that, whether it's part of our childhood or young adulthood kind of thing, I'm glad these things are making a comeback, and I can't wait till this thing releases.
Yeah, if you go to the Xbox store now, I'm assuming that this would be on the Switch as well as the PlayStation Network store, so it doesn't matter. It's not console war rhetoric. It's just if where I saw it. If you go to the store now and you scroll all the way down to the coming soon games, there is a new Double Dragon that they're making, and it looks really freaking awesome. Now, there's, I think, a $34.99 version, and there is a $50 version. Of course, I always buy the bigger editions, even if it's from stupid outfits, whatever. But I already got that pre-ordered. Like you said, the Toxic Crusaders, as it's called. Again, if you're an old school 80s kid, you remember Toxic Avenger, how that wasn't even a B movie. That was like a G movie. Like it was so cheap in Charlie that we laugh talking about it, but it was it's part of our it's part of our growing up. That's one that's coming out as well. They have actually a few, and I gotta say, man, I don't think anyone from Capcom listens to this show. It's fine, but as you know, through emulation and having a Raspberry Pi, and now I had a Steam Deck, and now RAG Ally, I play at least once a year one of my favorite side-scrolling beat 'em ups of all time, and it's Aliens versus Predator. My God, what an amazing side-scrolling beat 'em up! It's in the graphics and form and factor of Final Fight, but it's so freaking amazing. And you know what's interesting? Capcom did release one version of it at home. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, they released this thing. It was a double arcade stick, and that you plugged into your TV. It was a plug and play device. It was about $200. I think my friend Jay the Destroyer still has his. But it's like, if I had a man cave, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'd spend $200 on this just to get that one game, because that was on it. Aliens versus Predator, the real actual ROM from the arcades, is on this thing. But we're in an apartment. I barely have enough room for the controllers that are hanging on my wall here. So, but if I had to ask or even beg, and I will beg, folks, I hate to say this, please, for the love of Joe, not Joe Dunmore, shout out to you, brother, for the love of the gaming gods themselves, Capcom, please release a home version of this thing anywhere else. I don't care if it's a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Just release it so I can play it. But that's not where this conversation ends, because the one thing that we've seen Capcom, first of all, they have been hitting on all cylinders. Just They don't miss, folks. They just don't. And a Monster Hunter, I don't even know what it's called. Monster Hunter, whatever, is obviously doing really well for them. They have Onimusha 2 from the PlayStation 1. I already have that pre-ordered because I bought the first one and beat it. It's again, those games were the Souls games before there was such thing as Souls games, because they were freaking hard as hell, but they were awesome. And obviously, they keep going back to the well with their older stuff. I don't know if it's in the cards, Fuzzy, but I would really, really love if they went back and they remade or started a new one, rebooted the series of Final Fight, because I think just by seeing how popular the Turtles were, how many people bought, including myself, the Power Rangers one. Again, if you were a Power Rangers fan and you didn't know this was out, you need this in your life. It is so freaking amazing. Do you want a new Final Fight, Fuzzy Belvedere?
A new Final Fight would be awesome. Like I've been thinking with Capcom, a Final Fight, and the one that I keep asking for is like a updated version of like a Street Fighter versus SNK. But that's a whole nother story. I mean, we did get, what was that?
That's coming out soon. That actually, you can pre-order that now. It's the old ROMs, but they're like from the Dreamcast. I'm buying it. I already paid for it. So
yeah, I would definitely like them to do a newer version, but like a Final Fight would be an awesome one for them to release. Like I'm hoping they have like a roadmap for a lot of these fighters that they've had success with for all these years and things, and just they got to bring them back. They have to bring them back at some point, even if it's just that it's a remaster or something along those lines. They've been successful. They've been probably the most successful with remasters. I mean, sure, PlayStation does a lot of remasters, but it seems like Capcom has been hitting on all cylinders as far as that's concerned, except for like a Dino Crisis. That's about the thing they haven't done
yet. Which is,
but,
by the way, rumored, because if you didn't know, we didn't talk about this. I'm very surprised we didn't talk about this. And if you say Dino Crisis, usually BitCloud shows up, because that dude is as obsessive over it as I am. But they did re-up the license in Japan. Now, what does that mean? I don't know, man. I hope what that means is that we do get listen, just give it the Resident 2 remakes treatment. Just make it Dino Crisis, because they are doing an Onimusha 4, which is great. I would love for them to just remake Dino Crisis, because Dino Crisis is, my God, one of my favorite games during that PlayStation era. But please, sir, continue.
Yeah, Capcom is one of those fortunate developers that they have a great back catalog of IP, and they're actually utilizing it to some extent. A handful of the fan favorites haven't made it just yet, but if they're renewing the IP or the licensing for it, then hopefully it's something in development. But yeah, Final Fight is one of those that they got to bring back. They got to, it just needs to happen. Hopefully, whether they're listening or hopefully we can get enough people on social media to start posting, hey, where's Final Fight, or return to Final Fight. That would be awesome. But yeah, that's definitely one they need to bring back.
Well, I mean, again, just a small topic to open up today's show. Just, some fun conversation. Again, I'm an old school nerd. I'm always going to nerd out over things that, for us as graybeards, we were very privileged back in the days to have. And again, this is nothing against, people that are, 10, 15, 20, even 30 years younger than us. They have an amazing time now in gaming. Some gamers that are in their 20s, and we have some in the chat here, came into gaming during the PlayStation 4 era. I mean, wow, talk about starting off your gaming career in the best way freaking possible. We're old dinosaurs. And now I see you in there, there's graybeards. Throw a hashtag graybeards in the chat if you're over 50. You remember playing with sticks and dots and Atari. And again, I always bring this up because I guess maybe I'm traumatized. Does anyone remember Circus Atari with those goddamn paddles? And every time you'd go in the air and you hit that, it made that like you die. It's traumatizing, folks. It's traumatizing. So that is how old we are. But look, we got to get into what's on the screen, Fuzzy, and that is South of Midnight. Now, South of Midnight is a game by Compulsion Games. As I've told the story before, I got a chance to get about 2.5 hours worth of play, and that's because I really took my time. The game has already been out there in preview format. And most of what you've seen is what I'm allowed to show you here, and that is the third chapter in the game. This we were able to put this out as of content, so of course I'm playing. That's the only thing I can't play for you. And again, this is the conversation I want to have is why you should be excited for this game. Now, again, Fuzzy and I were talking in the green room before the show went live, and one of the things that we came to a realization of is how the DEI conversation seems to be losing steam, right? And we saw that at full effect for, of course, Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I'm playing. I think I'm 30 hours in now, and I haven't even gotten to the samurai yet. Like I'm just really enveloped in just the story of the shinobi and what's going on in the world, and I keep getting sidetracked by side missions. And there are these compounds. They're like castles that if you click on the map, it'll tell you whether or not there are high value targets there, whether there's a lot of loot there, and you'll see, like, you'll say value high. And I can't not go to that and try to execute everybody there and collect more gear. It's what I've been doing, and I got some really cool looking shit. So I'm having a blast with it. I'm also this weekend. I think it started today. Double XP for freaking Call of Duty. I already thankfully I'm done with season 2. Season 3, we just got the breakdown. Looks pretty dope. I'm very excited for that. I am about to hit Prestige 9, which I haven't done in, gee whiz, man, since like the 360 days. I know Will, the broke boy Lewis, who's in the chat, he just hit Prestige 10, and of course I think that's the you top out there. I'm very excited to do that. I will do that. I would imagine there's an achievement for it. But just coming back to this game, South of Midnight is a game that I got a chance to play the third chapter. A lot of you fine folks tuned in for an Ask Me Anything that I did about it. And you've seen the video. Again, if you've seen it already, I apologize. This is all I'm allowed to show right now. The game does release into early access via the $10 upgrade next Thursday, which is April 3rd. I don't know specifically the time for your region, but I'm sure as we get closer to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Compulsion Games, if they haven't already, will put out a time, where you can expect to download it. And this is one of those games that I think not only is going to be very memorable, Fuzzy Belvedere, I think that it's exactly what makes Xbox the most special platform of all the three right now. You get shooters, you get first-person shooters, you get third-person shooters, you have racing and you have driving, you have both sim, you have arcade, you have games going to Game Pass. I mean, just look what happened yesterday. Game Pass, out of complete nowhere, we knew Atomfall was happening. They dropped NCAA 25 into there. What a day for you just waking up and having that in your service. Right? Like how incredible is that, on top of everything that not only is there already, but things that are coming like South of Midnight, which will be in Game Pass on its official launch on the 8th of April. But I do want to kind of just focus on the game. What I've played in Chapter 3 is nothing short of incredible. Again, you can see that it has a very unique animation style, a Twitch animation style, very similar to what I like to compare it to is Coraline, one of my favorite films.
Yeah.
And look, this is not that no one's talking about it. I think people forgot that it was happening. And I do want to become that rah-rah guy because, again, this is a small studio. They're owned by Microsoft. They're a part of Xbox Game Studios. And this story is important, folks. It's important because it's telling a story of the Deep South where we don't get many of these kind of tales. Now, have there been some in the past during the other generations? Sure. The only one that really comes to mind to me is there was like a voodoo one. I'm not talking about Voodoo Vince. I'm talking about there was like a voodoo, like I think he's a variant character, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't even remember the game, let alone the story. This so far, from what I've played in chapter 3 and what you've been able to see by just going and watching some of the previews that other content creators have put out there, is absolutely incredible. It's supposed to have, I believe, 14 or 15 chapters in total. They said that the total amount to play through on an average is about 14 hours, which means that's probably around 25 for me, because I do take my time. I like to look for all the nooks and crannies. There are tremendous amounts of secrets to find in regards to how you level up, because again, it's RPG light, I would say, because there are ways to level up how your combat is, what's combat skills you have, and it's something you're going to want to do. But I think that the lore behind the story that you're being told is incredibly important, especially that finite detail. For chapter 3, it's specifically about two brothers, and you can just play the story and you can find out by just regular progression what happened. Of course, I'm not going to spoil that for you, but if you are inquisitive, if you enjoy story and context in your games, you're going to want to look around the corners, because the world becomes, at least for me, Fuzzy Belvedere, more lived in when you start finding these pages or these books where they tell you about the particular story chapter, that because each chapter is a different story. It's not an anthology, but it's a different scenario, a different story in the game. Chapter 3 specifically is about these two brothers, and it's super emotional, folks. I'm not going to front. Like, I beat it and I got a bit emotional after beating it, after what happens at the end. It's pretty deep. And you can just play the game as an action adventure game, a third person over the shoulder story driven game, and have an amazing time. But if you care, if you want to know more about the lore, you start looking and you start finding your way into different homes that are abandoned because of the flood. And obviously, the more that you spend learning about the lore, the more that the story you're being told becomes more personal for you, more something you want to do something about. Again, maybe it's just me, but Fuzzy, again, this is coming out next week. Early access. The early access, if you want to buy it, it's $10. I think the game is $30 or $30 or $40. It's worth every penny of it since of what I played. But let's get your thoughts and your expectations for South of Midnight.
Ooh, where do I begin? Because there's so many things that I'm getting a vibe of from this game. Like, one of the key things that, because of its location and because of a storm that pretty much happens in this area, the first thing that comes to mind is like the aftermath of Katrina kind of thing. And I know it to my understanding, it's not related in any way, but I kind of get that vibe where the chaos and tragedy that happened during that event, kind of mirrors some of the stuff that we might see in this story. So I'm interested in how this story goes, because I know it winds up being something where it starts off where you're looking for your mom, that you get separated during the storm, and it's like you come across all these others that you're helping along the way as well. And another aspect of it that I'm looking into or looking forward to is, like, I believe they're referred to as cryptids. I know last time I may mention it's like, almost like those legends that you hear, like even here in like the, Northeast where, the Jersey Devil exists. I believe cryptids is like the equivalent, like different creatures or lore stories that you hear about in that area. And I'm curious to see how that intertwines within the story itself. And the haints, which I guess are their like apparitions or like the trapped souls and things that you're going to be fighting against or facing off against and stuff. And just everything from that, like the backstory to the combat, which looks interesting. It doesn't look like it's just a matter of hack and slash. You are going to have to dodge, and maybe it's not like a Souls like kind of dodging that you'll have to do, but it does seem like if you wind up getting whacked, you're going to be losing a lot of health. and taking those souls out or cleansing them is how you kind of rebuild your health type of deal, or at least it seems so from like the
Yes.
gameplay. But like the traversal, the exploration, like you said, and there's a couple other things I've heard as far as that exploration. Like in like each chapter, I guess there's a song that tells you the story or sings you the story. But in finding those different things, like where you're saying like you're exploring, that gives you a piece of that song or a piece of that story, and that plays out at the end once you complete that level. And it's like all of those are interesting features or things that kind of draw you in. And I haven't played a game in a while where it is that not really a murder mystery, but a mystery in the sense of having to find those clues and then helping or fighting some sort of boss at the end that you're helping cleanse that area or bring peace to that area kind of thing. And all of those features just interest me in a very unique way where I'm looking forward to this. I'm definitely picking this up day one. Yes, I know I already have a subscription to Game Pass until sometime in 2028, but I'm buying this regardless. Like, this is one that I want to have. And yes, I do have record players, and I haven't seriously looked as far as the collector's edition, but I probably will eventually wind up picking that up, especially if it winds up being separate from like a digital copy or something like that of the game, where I can just have that soundtrack and stuff as an additional thing. But the music, the environment, the lore, all of those are appealing to me as far as that particular region and just some of the stories behind those events and things. That's I'm excited for it. Can't wait to play it. Yes, I'm knee deep. We're actually probably waist deep now into Assassin's Creed Shadows. I'm probably about 30 plus hours in there as well, maybe a little bit more, give or take. I do have access to Yasuke already, but I was pushing through to get to that and leveling up Naoi as much as I could in the interim. But yeah, this is going to be probably the next game I get into, either putting Assassin's Creed on pause or hopefully wrapping up enough of Assassin's Creed that I'm satisfied with the main story that I can move on to this. But yeah, this is definitely going to be top priority here come next week. So can't wait to play it. But it's just been one of those interesting looking titles ever since they first unveiled it, where you saw the guy from the Crossroads, something Bones. I can't remember what his name is, but I want to play this because of just all of the hints or call outs that they've had to parts of the South and parts of the history of that region, mixed into this game. I can't wait to play it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm going to say this. So I've seen a lot of people on social, and again, we don't do the names thing here. If people are uninterested in this game, I'm not going to fight with you folks. Either you play it and like it or you don't. I mean, listen, that's such is life, right? But what I'm seeing here, and folks, I want you to walk with me on this, because why this game is important and why it should matter and why it should matter to you is you're starting to see Xbox do something that Sony did to great success during their PlayStation 4 run. And I'm talking about when you go back to 2018, 2019, and 2020. Now, that particular block of first party releases for Sony specifically was, that's where the whole banger thing came from. And they released quite a few games in that block that were considered, that I absolutely adore, that are considered to me to be bangers. But what's interesting is not only did they have quote unquote bangers, they had smaller games. And the smaller games were lifted to a height because they were surrounded by these big games. And you're starting to see that now with Xbox, right? Now, whether it be third party or second party deals, like for instance, Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black came out, right? Yes, that's available everywhere in Game Pass, and it would not have existed without Phil Spencer and Xbox. Ninja Gaiden 4 coming out later this year is another part of that story. And again, I know for old guys like us, Ninja Gaiden isn't small, but for younger gamers who don't have a real association with that character, it may not matter. A game like South of Midnight, a smaller experience at 14 hours as what's being considered the average playthrough. And again, people like me, people like Infinite Umbra will spend 25, 30 hours, because not only do we want to get all the achievements because we're achievement whores, and that's fine, but we also like completing everything and seeing everything in a game that I believe to be incredibly important. And that's just me saying that. If you don't believe that, I'm not going to fight with you, but I believe this game to be super important for the world that we're currently in. And I love the fact that we're getting a story about the Deep South that you don't get many stories like this. And the authenticity that has comes with this, just based on the third chapter, is absolutely astounding. And I think that what I'm referring to basically is you're going to see Xbox, no matter what they release, it's going to be important, because not only do they have the big games, like I don't know how many people think Avowed is a big AAA game. I do. Avowed is right now my reigning game of the year. I have a ridiculous amount of time into it, and honestly, I cannot wait for the update for a new game plus so I could run through it again. That is how much fun I had that game, and I'm going to play it in a totally different way. I'm probably going to play in third person, and I'm going to do a fighter build, which I didn't do in my first run. It was first person Magic, and that's going to be like a new game, which is why I think it's a big AAA monster. Some people don't. But even if you only consider it to be AA, if you start putting these so-called AA games like South of Midnight, like Avowed, around the big releases like Doom, the Dark Ages, and potentially Gears, the Marcus Phoenix trilogy, or Call of Duty, or whatever you consider to be AAA, it's going to lift up these games and make them get noticed. And that you saw happen very prominently during that block of 2018, 2019, and 2020 for PlayStation, which again, they find themselves in a very un-Sony-like position where they don't have any of their own first-party games. That's the fact. But that's all I have for this particular topic. It is coming out next week. April 3rd is early access. If you want to upgrade, you can right now. It is $10. I think it's worth it. I think this game, which you've seen on your screen so far, is enough, at least for me, to sell me. I don't know if I'm not here to sell copies. I'm not getting paid for this, but I do think the game is amazing, and I can't wait for more people to experience what I've already experienced. And we got more to talk about, later on today. I got a couple of tweets that I'm gonna, I can't talk about yet, but I will be talking about later on this afternoon after 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you follow me on the socials, you'll see something pop up. But Fuzzy Belvedere, I do want to catch up on the super chat that we got here. And this comes the way of Jay Slay. Jay, good morning, kind sir. Thank you for the generosity. He drops, ladies and gentlemen, a $2 super chat and says, looks like some of the sprites built off of the Marvel versus Capcom. Of course, he's talking about the opening topic, and that is Marvel's Cosmic Invasion. What I got away from it, for me anyway, Jay, is I got X-Men arcade vibes. Like, that's what I took away from it, from the old school arcade cabinets, which, again, I know it was definitely 4 players, but I'm almost positive that there was a 5-player version of it. It was just massive. The vintage Sith Lord drops a very generous $2 super chat. He says, Circus Atari, I played all the time. I love it. Yeah, I enjoyed it, but it was hard as hell. And whenever you missed, you heard that crunch. It was traumatizing. It is what it is. But Fuzzy Belvedere, we got to get into the second topic of the show. Now, this obviously, ladies and gentlemen, is the lead title. Phil Spencer's Multiplat plan is not only brilliant, but I'm going to break down as to why it is. Now, this week we saw Xbox take up 5 of the top 10 most pre-ordered spots. And that is pretty damn amazing for a company known to only produce mid games, right? Now that's where we got to throw some salt into the faces. And again, we don't do the names thing here, folks, because we don't need to swim in those waters. But you know exactly what I'm talking about. And we've been hearing for years that Xbox can't put out AAA bangers. Xbox, their games are mid. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to reiterate who said it, but I remember there was some serious naysaying going on with even Forza Forza Horizon 5, like, another party racer game, right? You know who I'm talking about. These people are probably lined up to buy it, and they will never admit that they're playing it. And I don't know if you can hide what you're playing on PlayStation, because my stuff is all open, but maybe you can, and maybe they will. But rounding out the top 4 slots, and this is number 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yet Indiana Jones, both versions, the $100 edition at number 1, the $70 edition at number 2, and at number 3, you had the $100 edition of a 4-year-old game. And then, of course, at the 4th spot was the regular edition of Forza Horizon 5. And then at one point at the number 10 spot was Doom the Dark Ages, the $100 edition of Doom the Dark Ages. Now, folks, look, I'm no mathematician. And you've heard me say this. I think I made mention of this on Primetime Gaming. I said months ago that there was going to come up a time and a point where PlayStation's top either paid for, pre-ordered, or most played games were going to have half of Xbox first-party studios. And that has happened, folks. So now there's been a lot of hate for Phil Spencer for a lot of reasons. Lying Phil Spencer, as they said. Everyone keeps going back to that podcast from, I believe it was it last year in January, where he said only 4 games, and we all knew that he was talking about 4 games that year, and it has been only 4 games so far. We know that there are other games coming, 2 big ones in April: Indiana Jones, Forza Horizon. We know that. Starfield, listen, the cat's out of the bag, folks. That's happening this year. We've heard Nate the Hate talk about it. We've had other people make mention of it. At the beginning of the year, one of the listed games from some of the insiders was Hellblade 2. That's probably happening this year. And I would imagine that when those games drop into the PlayStation service, they are going to be number 1, number 2, and they're going to take up significant spots in their most pre-ordered / bought and / paid for games. This is happening, folks. So where I'm going with this story isn't where you think, because, just sitting and pondering at how the Trojan horse, or Operation Trojan Horse, for Phil Spencer and Microsoft getting their games onto PlayStation, eventually the Switch 2, has really taken up and a lot of the public conversation, right? Like, that is something that is, no matter where you go on the socials, you have people still on PlayStation saying that it's an L for Xbox because they don't have to buy an Xbox. And that's fine. If you believe that this is an L for Xbox, I think you're reading the room wrong, but it's okay. It's fine. Have your opinion. But where I think that this story goes, Fuzzy Belvedere, and I really want to drive this point home, I want the chat involved, and of course I'm going to get your thoughts on it, is just take a step back. Let's just put a pause on gaming for a second, right? Now, we know that the big no-no for this show and most shows is politics. We don't do that kind of stuff because politics is filthy, and I can't stand it. But tariffs is a real thing, and you're starting to see most of the heavy lifting because of these tariffs are falling onto us, right? The working mom and pop. We are the ones that are now suffering. The people with the big money, it doesn't matter to them because they have zeros upon zeros upon zeros in their bank account. I don't know about you. I don't, right? But where I want to take the story is this. Right now, we know, thanks to Matt Piscatello a couple of weeks ago, you've heard me make mention of this, that we, as hardcore gamers, we have 500 people here watching live. So a big thank you to the 500 people that are here watching live. Mrs. Boom and I incredibly are grateful for it. We equate 4% of the populace, leaving 96% of the casual audience and the normies. Now the normies, what do they equate to? 10, 15, right? 15% at the best. The rest are the casual audience. The casual audience bought PlayStation 3s and 4s and 5s and will probably buy PlayStation 6s because that's just what they do. They're casuals. They're good for 3 games a year, right? You've heard me talk about this numerous times. So I think that we are on a trajectory here, Fuzzy Belvedere. And again, this is a you can say it's a stretch, overextension on my opinion, but I don't really think so because PlayStation 5 they've shipped 75 million. That's awesome, right? They're almost on par to where the PlayStation 4 was and the PlayStation 4 Pro was during their life cycle. That's awesome for Sony. But we all know that they're not making money hand over fist with console sales. It's software. It's always been software, and and obviously it's services, which is big. And we know that Sony took a hit in their services. They lost 15+% of the populace because people don't want to pay for it. People can't afford to pay for it. So, Fuzzy, we were talking in the green room, and I had a thought and a theory. You're going to get one of these casuals, not the normies, the casual gamers that are going to get Forza Horizon 5. Maybe they just buy the $60 edition because it's $59.99, and they're okay with that. Maybe they buy some DLC, but maybe this is their first Xbox game, right? And they're like, wow, this is really good. And Indiana Jones releases in the same month. And they're like, oh my God, I remember Indiana Jones. That looks dope. I need that in my life. And there's a $70 version. There's a $100 version. They don't buy the $100 edition. They buy the $76.43 after tax. At some point, and I really do believe this, folks, I don't suggest, and I'm not suggesting, that people are going to start burning their PlayStation 5s or running to their local game or GameStop or, I was going to say EB Games, that's because I'm old, wherever, their Best Buy and trade in their PlayStation 5s to get Xbox consoles because they made a good racer. No, what I'm suggesting is what used to hold people to PlayStation was what? First party output, because they had all of the bangers. You had the Uncharted's and the Horizons and all of their incredible bangers, right? God of War. Every year was something. If it wasn't, a new God of War, it was a new Uncharted, or it was a new IP in Horizon, or it was this, it was that. Well, they don't have that anymore. There is nothing holding someone who appreciates Sony's first party to the brand anymore. There just isn't. And there's not going to be, at least for the next couple of years, because again, Ghost of Yotai is a sequel to a game that sold decently, sure, and sold really good on PC, but there's going to be a lot of people aren't going to buy because they don't know who the character is. It's not like Kratos from God of War. So there's nothing holding them to this console. Why do I need a PlayStation 5? Well, these casuals play Madden and Apex Legends and all of these third-party games, which now Microsoft is. So you say, how does that equate them buying an Xbox and moving over to Xbox? Folks, it's tariffs. It's a pack of meat being less expensive than a dozen eggs. That's the reason. And if, again, you got to understand, these casuals understand what a streaming service is because they have them already. They have probably 5 to 10 services that they pay for, whether it be Hulu or Netflix or pick your favorite 5. They probably have them. They know what they get with those services because they are informed consumers. Folks, I'm here to tell you, I think that the power keg of first party output and the value of Xbox Game Pass at $20 a month. If you just look at some of our favorite creators on the socials, look what Clobriel did the other day. He put up a graphic of the last 6 months of Xbox bangers, both first party and third party in Game Pass, and that list was ridiculous. Like, we absolutely are so spoiled, it doesn't even make sense. You're going to get people to be like, I can get an Xbox and I can pay for this service. I think you're going to see, I'm not suggesting that they're going to be trading in their PlayStations, but I think you're going to see a lot of people look and ask the question, why should I have a PlayStation when I can get all of these games on a service? And that really is the crux of the conversation. Please, if you think that I'm spitballing here, you can say it in the chat. I'm not going to get angry. I think there's a lot to this story. Fuzzy, I want to get your thoughts and your theories on this, because I know you have a lot to say on it.
Well, one of the big things that people used to always say is that when it comes to changing platforms, you always have this back catalog. And with the casuals, a lot of that back catalog are, annual editions of Call of Duty or annual editions of Madden. And one of the advantages, if they do decide to jump ship and head over to Xbox and they pick up a Game Pass subscription, is that at some point, and this is where Xbox really needs to be on message and get the ball going as far as getting a lot of those Call of Duties in the service. If they have all of the Call of Duties in Game Pass, then that pretty much takes care of probably a majority of the casual gamers back catalog, so they don't lose out anything. And if they even keep or hold on to their games, like a lot of what we think of as casuals are the ones that, like I've heard before, where you would trade it in to get the next copy, and you get basically like $20 to $30 off the next copy kind of thing. So if they are the ones where they've already traded in stuff, but then they would like to have gone back to one of their favorite zombie modes in a previous Call of Duty, and it's in Game Pass, then that's going to be that's going to have extra incentive for them. And it's not necessarily a fact of getting rid of that box. It could be a matter of, well, instead of getting the next generation PS6, they pick up either the current generation of Xbox or the next generation of Xbox at that point, just for the fact that overall they'll be spending less money to have access to more of the games that they normally play, and some that they may have passed on because, well, the economy being what it is. Like we a lot of us in the chat and a lot of us on panels and things like that, we usually pick up at least a game a month on average, let's say, but that's 4% of the populace of the gaming, community. When it comes to the casual, if they're mainly picking up 2 to 3 games a year, and Call of Duty is one of them, Madden might be the other one, or NBA 2K might be the other. Well, a lot of the older title or just as they're like 3 to 6 months out from the next season, those wind up being in Game Pass. Like we've seen NBA 2K go in usually after about 3 to 6 months from the time of launch. Same thing with Madden. So if they are patient, they can go ahead like around Super Bowl time or around the playoffs time and have that game in the service without having to shell out the full $70 and stuff. And we're seeing a lot more perks that either give you VC or give you the coins or upgradable content for some of those games. So all of that considered, for their $20 a month plus, let's say a $250 that they would spend on like a Series S, that's enough of a bargain. I wouldn't say agreement, but enough of a bargain for them to consider it. Will people come over in droves? Probably not, but I think enough people will start to make that choice where it's like, hey, I have access to all the Call of Duties. I have access to some of the Maddens that I would like to have gone back to. Oh, NCAA, like especially for those that are still on PS4 and Xbox One, maybe they didn't do the upgrade already for those consoles to get something like NCAA, but now it's in the service. Hey, maybe they have a computer powerful enough to do the streaming aspect of it, or they can do the console streaming on an Xbox One. That's all of the things that add up as far as making it more of an appealing platform. And that was one of the key things that Phil Spencer talked about. Like, he wants to differentiate the platforms by the features of the hardware. Well, one of the features that even goes back to the older hardware is that streaming capability. So if you have decent internet, you're not really missing out. They're making improvements to their streaming, services. Plus, they have some of the tech that we've seen from Activision, some of the tech from Bethesda, as far as making some of that streaming service even better, that they're starting to integrate into their current setup. So I would say you're onto something as far as there will be some migration. How large of a migration? Only time will tell, kind of thing. But I do think there will be some appeal, especially for those that are still on last generation's hardware, looking to make that next leap. And in a lot of cases, those same people may not upgrade to the PS6 or the Xbox Series X2 or whatever kind of deal. They might just upgrade to what we're currently in this current generation, knowing that it's going to be cheaper on the shelf, knowing that there's a full library already released. If they should choose to partake in any of that, they may only go up one generation, or they may leapfrog and go to the very next generation. But Game Pass, its value proposition that it offers is something that you can't deny does have some draw to it. And knowing Xbox, if they can nail the messaging for that consumer base, where they can now market, Call of Duty. Now they could, hopefully soon they'll be able to say, hey, all the Call of Duties in this same service that you'll have access to. Getting, Game Pass Ultimate automatically includes the online aspect of things. That's going to probably be the game changer that might draw some of those PlayStation cats over. But we'll see. But it does have merit in being that I guess draw to the platform. So we'll see.
It's funny, and again, everyone's going, having a great time going back and forth with each other. And again, I want to make something super clear here. The abandonment of digital collections seems to be a sticking point for some people in the chat. So here's the thing, Fuzzy, you hit the nail on the head, and I apologize for not leading that. I'm glad you made mention of it, because I would have forgotten about it. We as hardcore gamers, right? 4%, folks. Just remember that. It's 4%. I have a digital library on my Series X that's 1,000 games strong. 1,000 plus games. I buy a lot of shit. I just bought 4 games this week. Smaller titles. And again, I don't know why I do this to myself, because I'll go through what I paid for, and I'm like for instance, A Quiet Place. A game came out, it was on sale, I bought it. I know I kept seeing Jamie Moran talk about it. I'm like, oh my God, I got to play it. I love the films. And I just saw it the other day. I'm like, oh my God, I got to play that freaking game, because I forgot all about it. So I buy a lot of games. I have over 1,000 games going all the way back to the OG Xbox to current, right? Do I have all of them saved to a hard drive? No. I think I have an 8 terabyte hard drive and a 5 hooked up. And there's still a lot of room, but I don't keep all the games on there. Whatever, it's fine. So I have a ridiculous digital library. But Fuzzy hit the nail on the head. You have to understand, and you have to, again, we're all hardcore here, folks. Understand there's a 513 people watching live. You're here because, well, I hope that you're here because you enjoy hearing me and Fuzzy and the rest of my guests talk about gaming, but you're here because you're a hardcore gamer. Whether you spend 10 hours a day watching podcasts or playing games, you are the hardcore. Fuzzy made mention of something that is super important to think about, especially in the direction I tried to take this conversation. Value proposition is going to be the contributing factor on whether or not someone stays with PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo. Why? Because right now everything is super expensive. And again, take yourself away from the hardcore mentality. Most gamers, most of the casual audience, right? I've seen it. I have friends that have this. They have one controller, they have their console, and right next to them a stack of games that's probably 8 games deep. And most of them are old NHLs, old Maddens, old Call of Duties, right? There might be something that's a third party in there, like an Assassin's Creed, right? There's probably a GTA 5 there. Everyone bought like 10 copies of it. Didn't even realize that we all did. We all bought 10 copies of GTA 5 at one point or another. They probably have that. But what these normies or casuals go and do is they take when a new game is coming out, like Madden, and they take their 5 or 6 games and they go to GameStop and they get 50 cents per game, right? Because GameStop, they're terrible, right? And they buy the next Madden. And that is where they go. But Madden isn't PlayStation first party, ladies and gentlemen. It's just not. And Xbox is hitting. Now, granted, this next part of the conversation is all on the plate of Microsoft, and they could, in fact, F this up. What am I talking about? That is getting out there to the peoples and letting them know about Game Pass, letting them know about Xbox, the Series console, Series S, Series X. And look, I understand that they don't read the trades like we do, right? They're casuals, folks. They just don't. But what they do understand is money. And if there is something that is special, like a Call of Duty, like a Doom, the Dark Ages, like a Gears of War or an Avowed, or even South of Midnight that's on your screen, these are all in a service that's $20 a month. You're going to get someone that's going to look at this and be like, wait a second. You're saying that I just paid $100 because I know Forza. I played it on the OG Xbox or on the Xbox 360. I loved it. This one looks fantastic. And they just spent $100. Do you know that if they just again, they're casuals, paid the $100, they could have gotten this game and 100 plus other games for the 5 months of that $100 they just spent on the game, folks. You're going to see people move over. And again, they're not beholden to the PlayStation plastic box because there's nothing holding them there. That's the thing. We keep hearing, oh, the first party for PlayStation, even if they were playing or having games every 6 months or every year, PlayStation gamers, the casual audience, don't buy these games. They just don't. And this is an ingenious plan that we would have never been thinking if we wouldn't have gotten where we are, Fuzzy. Any additional thoughts on what I just said?
Other than, I know it, like with PlayStation talking about like their first party, the biggest thing now is that we heard recently, I guess Intergalactic is not 2026, it's more than likely 2027.
Yeah.
So there is going to be this time period where their focus is just going to be on 1 or 2 titles a year outside of MLB. So the normal, I guess you could say, draw or anchor to keep you within the PlayStation, ecosystem used to be that they were doing 3+ of their first party or partnered deals. And they're still going to have, like from the China project, I think they're still going to have some partnered deals throughout the year. But that still might only be 1 or 2 for the year overall. So with Xbox's first party releasing numbers of titles, and sure, some of them wind up on PlayStation at a later time, it's going to get to a point where if you're about certain games or trying certain games, but want to stay within a budget, Game Pass is going to be the better alternative to something like PS Essential or even PS Plus, like their upper tiers and things. So it's really more so how the way Game Pass is set up in comparison. Like, sure, you could do the EA play on PlayStation, but with it being rolled into Game Pass and such, there is some benefit for things like, Madden is not a first party for either platform, but as someone that has Game Pass, you automatically have a lot of their stuff that they drop in there unless you're already an EA subscriber on PlayStation. So there's a lot more things kind of lumped in when you do Game Pass or Game Pass Ultimate that you get as perks, not just the perks that they offer, but the perks from first party, perks from getting third party day and date in a lot of cases, or getting some of the bigger games within the first 6 months of their release, which if you're looking at like PS Essentials, which other than a few partnered handful titles, there aren't many that go in within the first 6 months or within the first 8 or 9 months. It usually is about a year later, which that's changed on some of the smaller titles, let's say, for indies and things like that. But when you're getting some of the bigger third parties like your Capcoms, like your Sega, putting titles, at launch in Game Pass, that could be the differentiating factor. But overall, given their first party, Call of Duty is probably a big enough draw. Once they get all of the back compat or the older Call of Duties in that service, all the Dooms are currently in the service. So if you're into that, all the Fallouts are in the service. All of the Skyrims and stuff are in the service and stuff. So there's so much already there that you would have access to, that whether you had it in your previous library or you traded it into GameStop, or it's just something that you may have passed on because of timing or finances back when it was launched, and having it in the service now for the subscription price, which even spending it over the year versus what you would be spending on the games themselves, I think a lot of people will look at that as a potential benefit moving forward. But like I said before, we'll see. The key thing is marketing. If marketing nails that or drives that nail home as far as having all of this access to all of these games, oh, by the way, that you can play on other devices that you may already own, like your tablet, like your cell phone, like your laptop or your desktop computer, that's going to be the key thing. And that's the value proposition aspect of gaming where you want, how you want. I mean, sure, you could still game on your old PlayStation. They may not even trade that in. It's just a matter of if their primary box or primary platform eventually becomes Xbox, that benefits not only Xbox platform but gaming as a whole at that point, because now, given how much investment Xbox has put into third parties or partnered publishers and developers and things along those lines, it looks like they'll have a more full, not just catalog, but also access to a lot more games than what they may have even imagined in their best case dream back in the Blockbuster days. So yeah, I think that's what a lot of people may overlook. But once again, like it was said earlier, most of us here that are listening to this or on these panels, we're the hardcore, the 4%, the extreme minority as far as the gaming community. The casuals will be the one that will, let us know as far as what the industry will kind of focus on. And keep in mind, the casuals are the same ones that are really dived into these free-to-play games. They're the ones, and part of the reason why some of them might not even buy games a year. They just go with the free-to-play, and maybe they could do that season pass and things. And knowing that Xbox is now going to give you some of the perks in conjunction with that, plus having your online access, which they've all on the free-to-play games kind of waived that charge, but we'll see what the next generation holds if they waive all of that online access in favor of just the catalog of titles and things like that. But in general, the casuals kind of, manipulate the market in a way where the publishers chase that group. And we'll see how that goes.
Indeed. And great points all around. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us here on a Friday afternoon, almost a Friday afternoon. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and Fuzzy. 3 topics, one small one to start or open up the show. Of course, two sizable ones on the back end. Hopefully you enjoyed your time here to hit the like button. We are officially 191 subs away, ladies and gentlemen, from 16K. That is pretty cool. And of course, listen, the goal is to 20, 25, 30, 50,000 subscribers. I don't know if we'll ever get there. but maybe one day. And again, we're just waiting for that one thing. If you've ever watched someone's YouTube channel, especially some of the ones that have like the big 100,000 subscribers, they have that one thing that happens to them and explodes. We've seen that, I mean, again, we can name the names here for that because that's positivity. But you look at like Ninja, for instance. I don't remember it was who jumped on his show, but he started streaming when he was a kid, right? And he had someone jump on his show. They jumped on his stream, and it exploded. I just need someone like Drake to say he wants to, talk about video games and get Drake on the show. Drake, if you're listening, brother, hit me up. We'll get you on the show, and you can help me explode the channel. But we'll see. Listen, we're always gonna have fun here. We're always gonna be laughing. We're always gonna be talking about the big news of gaming, and we're gonna do it the grassroots way, which of course is sometimes it's longer. It takes longer to get here, but that's the way we enjoy doing it. It being fair, being honest, being transparent, and of course, more importantly, being honorable. Which is why we enjoy what we do. We have fun, and we never use hate-driven content because, again, I told you this before, folks, and I'll say it again. I'll quit the business if I have to sell hate in order to have people tune in. And thankfully, we don't have that problem. But that's thanks to you, ladies and gentlemen. Fuzzy, let me just catch up on these last. We have a channel member chat, and we have a gifted sub, as we always do on this channel. So a big thank you to, of course, the subs that continue to come in. Torino Johnson, who's been a channel member for 18 months. This is funny, folks. He says he's playing indie, and he says, and he goes, let me just tell you that I will not be going into a lake, river, or any large body of water again. Jaws all over again. If you remember as a kid, like I was always like, after watching Jaws, I didn't even want to go into the pool. That's so stupid. But yeah, no, you're not wrong. I know exactly what you're talking about, why you're saying that. But yeah, that's a really good part that a lot of people don't know about. So no spoilers here. If you haven't played Indiana Jones, you might know what he's talking about. And it's a pretty big thing in the game. But shout out to you, Torino. Thank you for the continued support. We also have Nino Vostik, our very generous friend from Hawaii. So aloha to you and the family. As always, brother, thank you so much for the consistent support. He has gifted one Double Barrel Gaming membership, as he's done, my God, almost every show. So thank you. Mrs. Boom and I are very, very grateful for your generosity. And that's going to do it for us. Fuzzy Belvedere, let's sell your brand, brother, but not just your brand. Because, of course, if you didn't know and you are a fan of racing, then you need to subscribe to Fuzzy Belvedere's YouTube channel, because his channel is the best place for anything and everything in the racing genre. But his wife has a horror podcast happening tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or at least on Fridays, called Fright Night with Ferocious Fee. If you are on a horror stand like me, you don't want to miss it, because again, it's good conversation, and it's maybe some films that you've never heard of. And that's happened to me, like me and Mrs. Boom. I've watched them, like, oh, they told us about this film, and we wind up watching it, and like, oh, that was really good. I wouldn't have known if I didn't tune in. Brother, sell the brand. Where can people subscribe to both of your YouTube channels, but more importantly, follow you guys on social media?
Well, as always, Boom, greatly appreciate you having me on. Always love doing this on Fridays, talking with you about the games and gaming industry as a whole. And thanks to everybody in the chat for joining us. Greatly appreciate you guys showing up. Love the support. Truly appreciate it. Don't forget, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. It's all greatly appreciated. And for those that want to hear my rambles and rants on anything gaming related, or check out some of my racing replays or thoughts on certain racing games, I put the link in the chat for my YouTube channel, or you could just search on social media for Fuzzy Belvedere. You should be able to find me everywhere but Facebook. But when it comes to the horror genre, whether you're into horror games or horror movies, definitely watch me and my wife and Silent Cypher and Presto Beaches and a few other panel members that we have over on Fright Night with Ferocious Fee at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Friday night. The movie for this night is going to be The Autopsy of Jane Doe. A very interesting movie. Yes. Definitely worth checking it out if you haven't already. But if you're interested, or if you've already checked out the movie, definitely join us in the chat on the show. Once again, link is in the chat for the channel. 6 p.m. tonight. Autopsy of Jane Doe. Yeah, we're going to have some interesting conversation on that one. But as always, have an awesome weekend. Get some good gaming in, some horror movies in when you're not into the gaming aspect, but have fun this weekend. Be safe, and hope to see you guys next week. Same time, same place, same channel. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here as always. Shout out to Tim the Sorceress. He says that he saw some of Boom's recorded racing that combines fuzzy and wife's horror and horror racing. How dare you, Tim the Sorcerer? I don't drive like that in real life. It's only a video game. Trust me, I swear. Listen, again, thank you so much for all the generosity that comes in. Thank you, chat, for being as awesome and welcoming as you always are. And real quick, as a quick reminder, remember, Monday, there will not be a new episode of the Xbox Lunch Break Special because Mrs. Boom and I have not one but two appointments, and they fall like literally right in the middle of the day. So there's no way to have been able to do the show and not be late for our appointments. But we will be back the following week. And of course, a big thank you to everyone that tuned in. Hit the like button on your way out. And I will close out the show, ladies and gentlemen, with something that's incredibly important to me. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you, you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. And we'll see you next week on the newest episode of Breakfast with Boom.